You know, sometimes history turns on a dime. In 1901, an assassin's bullet didn't just kill a president, it unleashed one. We're talking about a man so energetic, so unpredictable, that the political bosses of the day literally tried to bury him in the vice presidency. So let's get into the whirlwind presidency of Theodore Roosevelt.
That damn cowboy is president. Just listen to that. That's the sound of pure, unfiltered political shock. Those are the words of Mark Hanna, the ultimate Republican Party insider, when he heard that President McKinley was gone. The guy they called that damn cowboy was now running the show, and the establishment was, frankly, terrified. Why? Because they knew they had just completely lost control.
So how on earth did this cowboy get to the White House in the first place? Well, his rise to power wasn't just fast, it was absolutely meteoric. And trust me, it was never part of the plan.
I mean, just look at the velocity of his career here. It's incredible. In just 4 years, he goes from being a secretary in the Navy Department to a bona fide war hero leading the Rough Riders, and then he becomes governor of New York. Now, the party bosses found him so difficult, so impossible to control as governor, that they came up with a brilliant idea. Push him into the vice presidency. They thought it was a quiet, dead-end job, a political graveyard. Turns out, it was actually the waiting room for the most powerful job in the world.
Now, Roosevelt didn't exactly inherit a calm and stable America. Not at all. He took the helm of a nation that was basically a pressure cooker of inequality, huge corporate power, and a growing roar from the public for some serious change. This was the dawn of the progressive era.
So what was progressivism, really? Well, at its heart, it was a reaction. It was an idealistic and, frankly, pretty angry response to the Gilded Age, that time when a tiny few got fantastically rich while a whole lot of people struggled. It was a call to, humanize industrial capitalism and clean up a government that seemed to only work for the rich and powerful.
4,000. That number might not sound like a lot today, but back in 1901, it represented an unbelievable concentration of wealth. This was the age of the titans. We're talking about guys like John D. Rockefeller, who was on his way to becoming the world's first billionaire, and Andrew Carnegie. They didn't just own companies, they controlled entire industries through these massive corporate monopolies called trusts, which could basically crush any competition and set whatever prices they want. So, the progressives had a to-do list, a battle plan, really. They wanted to break the stranglehold of corrupt political bosses, get a handle on those powerful trusts, give working people a fair shot, protect America's natural landscapes from being totally plundered, and just generally raise the standard of public life. This agenda? It would become Theodore Roosevelt's playbook.
And here's the thing about Roosevelt. He didn't just talk about these ideas. He went out and did something about them. He promised Americans what he called a square deal. And to deliver it, he was about to fundamentally change the power of the presidency itself.
Roosevelt had this idea of the presidency as a bully pulpit. Now, he didn't mean bully like a tormentor. In his day, bully meant terrific or first-rate. For him, it was this amazing platform to speak directly to the American people, to rally them against powerful special interests, and to completely shape the national conversation. He was the first president to really figure this out and use it.
Okay, and this story right here perfectly illustrates his new approach. In 1902, a huge coal strike threatened to cause a major energy crisis for the winter. Now, any other president before him probably would have just sent in the army to break the strike. But Roosevelt, he did something totally radical. He dragged both the mine owners and the union leaders to the White House and basically forced them to sit down and negotiate. It was the very first time a president had ever sided with labor against big business, and you better believe he made sure everyone knew it was a victory for his square deal.
And this chart, wow, it really lays it all out, doesn't it? The difference is just night and day. Where his predecessors were hands-off and just let Congress run the show, Roosevelt saw himself as the steward of the national interest. He was an activist president who would use every ounce of his power. He completely revitalized the office, making it the absolute center of American political life.
And believe me, he was not afraid to pick his fights. In 1902, he decided to take on the most powerful financier on the planet, J.P. Morgan, by suing to break up his giant railroad monopoly. Everyone, and I mean everyone, thought he was going to lose. But in 1904, the Supreme Court sided with Roosevelt. This is what cemented his reputation as the trust buster. And it was followed by laws like the Hepburn Act, which finally gave the government some real teeth to regulate the railroads.
But Roosevelt's vision for America, it wasn't just about boardrooms and picket lines. It was also about the land itself. The vast, wild, beautiful landscapes that he believed truly defined the nation's character.
You have to understand, for Roosevelt, conservation was deeply personal. It was patriotic. This wasn't just about saving some trees, it was about preserving that pioneering, rugged, uniquely American spirit that he saw reflected in the wilderness. It was a core part of what it meant to be an American.
And he put that belief into action on a scale that is just mind-boggling. Let's run through the numbers, because they're pretty epic. First up, 193 million. That's how many acres of national forest he protected. To put that in perspective, he took the 20 million acres that already existed and multiplied it by almost 10.
And he didn't stop with forests. He also created 53 new wildlife reserves, the first of their kind, specifically to protect animals like bison and egrets that were literally being hunted to the brink of extinction. This was a revolutionary idea for the time.
And finally, he established 5 brand new national parks, preserving these iconic, breathtaking landscapes for all time. Seriously, when you add it all up, the forests, the reserves, the parks, the scale of his environmental legacy is just staggering.
So, after all that, what did all this energy, all this action, ultimately mean? Well, Roosevelt left a mark on the presidency and on the nation that we still feel today.
This, right here, is his core legacy. He created what we now call the modern, energetic presidency. He permanently changed what we expect a president to be, not just some chief administrator, but the nation's leader, its moral voice, and the active guardian of the people's interests.
But it's important to see the nuance here, because it wasn't that simple. While he was famous for railing against the wealthy criminal class, he wasn't some radical who wanted to tear down capitalism. He was a realist. He believed big business was vital for America's success. He just insisted that it had to be regulated for the public good. He would bust a trust one day and then turn around and work with J.P. Morgan to stabilize the economy the next.
And then, just when you think you haven't figured out, this man who so clearly loved the power and the spotlight of the office, he did something remarkable. In 1908, while he was still wildly popular, he honored the precedent set by George Washington and just stepped aside. He chose not to seek a third term.
Which leaves us with a pretty big question to think about. Roosevelt forged the powerful, central role of the modern president. He used that power to fight for the common person and to protect the nation's heritage. But in doing so, did he also set the stage for the arguments we still have today about the reach and the potential overreach of executive power? That's the question his energetic legacy leaves for all of us to answer.